Alright, so now that we've gone through all the really deep stuff, I want to back up a little bit and just take you guys through the file structure, the folder structure, give you a tour of the files that I think you might find helpful. Um, and if you just open up the zip that I sent Dr. Wong, he should have received the link and forwarded it to you. That you're going to have that before this video is helpful to you. First on the list is example fault trees and state charts. If you go in there, it's exactly what it says minus the state charts. I think that PDF I have there on the end is state charts that would be helpful, um, or a company that probably would have some state charts for us, or maybe some fault trees. We've got plenty of fault trees there from various people. Do not hand those out at all. Those, again, we do not want to break our partnerships with those industries. Those were given to us on specific demand of confidentiality. Do not release them. Period. Amen. End of story. I don't want my name destroyed, and Dr. Wong certainly does not want his name destroyed either. So use them for reference. Use them for nothing more. As for state charts, you're going to have to do research on your own. I wasn't able to get my hands on any of them. So that's that first folder. And if you go down to style guides, what we have there is IEEE in Chicago. Most of the papers that you write, or for this program, would be an IEEE style. And just to demystify some things, IEEE has a couple of specific things they prefer, and they've got like a 2-page document. I've included that there, of the way they like things done. But for everything else, they base their stuff on the Chicago Manual of Style, University of Chicago Manual of Style. And I've included what's freely available on the internet, the free Chicago Manual First Edition, but the updated edition information is available online. You can get a lot of help from the Writing Center there on campus, on stylistic preference. We have a writing lab that you guys are supposed to go through that will help you a lot with this kind of stuff. But those are just some resources that might be helpful to you if you ever get to the point of writing a paper for this program. Now we go back to the top level directory and we go into our materials, and that's meaning stuff that my group produced. That first folder, our attempts, is just the several systems that we thought we might try to explore and implement as examples of IFSS. That first one, ABS, is the analog brake system, and you've got in there, I believe, a bunch of Visio files and document files, and those would be our fault trees, state charts, and IFSS combined, as well as some supporting research about how the analog brake system works, how we figured out that it works, and if for nothing else, how we decided that it works. Some other systems that I thought might be interesting to work with would be a fire warning or fighting system, or maybe a severe weather warning system. But the most important one for you guys is the analog brake system, because that one was done end-to-end example of IFSS. It's a great resource. Now, if you go into our reports, there are a couple of different, we've got our PowerPoint presentations that we used for our final presentation, or video presentation, some write-ups that we did. That research graph is really helpful because it just shows in a graphical format the different subject areas that we explored and kind of how they're related. So that's worth taking a look at. And there are some notes in there on IFSS that probably demystify that paper a little bit. I highly recommend those. And I think that pretty much covers that folder, but our reports is a great resource for you. because it can bring you up to speed, give you some summary of the stuff we did, get access to the PowerPoint presentations that you see in some of the videos. And now this is the most important resource to me individually. Going back up one directory to our materials, the research journal. That was my personal research journal, and I wrote everything down. Starting in June 8th of last year, I wrote I wrote notes from every meeting that we had. I wrote notes from every paper that I read. If you want to go through and have a really good resource about what I think some of the people that I checked with, just how things went over the course of the program, just tracing our research and how we got to the conclusions that we did, that's a great resource. I have a bunch of websites codified. I have or logged, I guess would be a good way to put it. I have a bunch of keywords in there. I've got a bunch of discussion and commentary. Some of it's directly related to this. Some of it's a little bit broader, just branching out a little bit. It just traces everything I did, people I contacted, their contact information. Use it wisely. We had a very bad mishap last year where my contact with some outside people didn't go so well. So if you want to contact some of those people, talk to Dr. Wong before you do it, and I absolutely mean that. Just as much as I mean you don't need to share those files without authorization from the people that created them. Preferably not at all, but if the people that created them are okay with it, that's a different story. I would like to have it in absolute writing signed by somebody who knows what they're talking about. But research journal, great resource. About 33 pages of my personal writing and some of my communications with different people. Use it and abuse it as much as you can. Well, abuse it in the sense that I mean use it a lot. I don't mean actually abuse it. Anyways, so going back up to the top level directory, we go finally to the research papers. And this is really simple. I mean, I've just got it categorized by category. I've got my fault trees there, and you can go in there, and I would recommend, I think, the fault tree handbook from the Nuclear Regulation Commission. That was the one that Dr. Wong himself recommended to us and printed for us. But that's a great resource to just go through and mark up to get a feel for how fault trees work and how they're used. Going back up a level, we get to state machines. I've got some state charts that David Harrell recommended for me. Those are primarily biology, but if you're just trying to get a feel for how state charts work, that biology your thing, it might be easier to understand that way. And I don't have any particular recommendation out of these papers for working with state charts or state machines, which are almost the same thing, by the way, but there is a slight difference. I don't want to get into that because honestly I don't remember it off the top of my head. But there are a lot of different files in there that you can use to choose from. If one doesn't work, just try another. That's a huge library that we built for you. And then the last one is temporal logic. Like I was talking about in the previous video, you want to be concerned with the order of things. You want to be concerned with order of events and how much time takes place between those events. That's important. And by the way, there's a book in the UTD library on UML state charts or state machines. And you can probably just find it by doing that search on the library website, but if nothing else, just go to my research journal and it will be there. And that would be extremely helpful for you, because that was the main resource that Ethan used when he was trying to learn state charts. But you know, there may be some other good resources in there as well, and it's worth taking a look at. And finally, under the state machines category, I have a thing in there called semantics. One thing that we were really confused about last year was trying to figure out what the heck the difference was between syntax and semantics. And the best thing that we could come up with, at least from my understanding, is syntax is just the kind of the surface level when you use an or an and, or you design a state chart. This is how you um, this is how you put it together. You know, this is a state and this is an event, and it's just really base level stuff. Whereas the semantics include all of the implications behind everything. I think in IFSS, or at least one of the comparative applications, um, when you talk about exiting between superstates, which is, you know, you got a big state. Maybe one example we saw, I should say, was like, is your system in debug mode or running mode, like production mode? What is it? Are you trying to troubleshoot it, or repair it, or are you trying to just use it regularly? And those are two huge super states for a system. But within those two huge super states, you could have a light on or off, or a system running or not, or a valve open or closed. There are so many different states that could happen. And when you go between the two big super states, when you switch from runtime mode to debug mode, what happens with all of the exits, with all of the substates? What happens? How do they occur? Those are the semantics. So I know that's kind of vague, but syntax, you're dealing with just really base level stuff, how it's written, how you draw it out. Semantics, all the deep possible implications and meanings behind that basic syntax. So, yeah, there's your tour of our files. And again, let me emphasize, use my research journal as much as possible. These videos are a great resource too, but use the research journal. And just as a reminder, it's under Our Materials in the top level directory. 33 pages of awesome information. Not that I'm biased or anything. So, good luck.